life just a bit more manageable. Remember, the tools and the tidbits that you pick up on this channel, they're purely educational. They can't replace therapy, but with some practice, they can help you along in your daily life. So let's get started. Today, I want to talk to you about something a little different, a departure from what we normally talk about, which is just more directly mental health and anxiety and getting better and growing. I want to talk to you and explore together about conspiracy theories and superstitions. I don't know if you're like me, I do tend to knock on wood and all this kind of stuff. I think it's a little bit cultural for me and more than, me buying into it. But there are these varying degrees of how much certain people buy into, from conspiracy theories to everyday superstitions. Sometimes people just do them because out of habit or they watch their family growing up doing that. And some people do it because they're like, no, I believe in this to some degree or another. So let's explore what it is. I thought that might be an interesting topic for us to explore together. Superstitions and conspiracy theories usually revolve around something going wrong, right? Superstitions often are preventing something going wrong, right? I knock on wood to say, oh, hope that doesn't happen. Oh, I just said a terrible thing. Let me knock on wood. I was talking about something terrible. Oh, I would never want that to happen. Something like that, right? Or step on a crack, break your mother's back, or a cat crossing your path. I mean, there are a million of them, and every culture has really, really specific ones. Like my culture, I was telling somebody this, they're like, that's very specific. I started singing, but I hadn't eaten, and in my culture, there's a superstition about not singing before breakfast, before you eat, and that's bad luck, right? But it always does revolve around bad luck or something going bad in the future. And we usually do a ritual to make ourselves feel better and reassure ourselves if we just do this one thing, we're in control. We're managing it. We're keeping the bad stuff away, right? Or the evil eye. Like I know in a lot of cultures, people will wear the evil eye to ward off evil or bad luck, right? And again, some people just wear it because they're just used to wearing things like that, but some people really truly believe it. And then I think a little further on the spectrum is conspiracy theories, where people really buy into an alternate, usually darker explanation than the one that we're being given at face value. And these conspiracy theories a lot of times do revolve around tragic events, right? Around assassinations and around shootings, mass shootings, around something as terrible as 9/11 or other terroristic acts. If it infiltrates, into the pop culture and it's something that a lot of people are suffering from, you can get these conspiracy theories that sprout up of, the explanation that we're being given isn't the true explanation, especially when the explanation is a little bit murky or uncertain. People tend to buy into, even if they're far-fetched, these conspiracy theories. I have to admit something to you guys. I have a fascination about Marilyn Monroe, say that 3 times fast, and her life, and I have watched every documentary there is to watch. I find her life tragic and fascinating. And I have found myself buying into some of the conspiracy theories of it wasn't an overdose, she was killed or something, nefarious happened. I do find myself buying into some of them, and I have to sort of stop myself and tell myself what I'm going to be telling you guys today. We tend to buy into these things because what is happening feels very, very messy. It feels chaotic, it feels random, which starts to feel a little doomsday-ish to us, right? Take the Marilyn Monroe one that I bought into. Here is this goddess of a woman, right, in her prime, in her mid-30s, so young, and she seems untouchable. The entire world is literally in love with her, and she seems like this woman who will live forever and ever and ever, right? And here she is, and one day she no longer exists. God, I mean, not to this degree, but what happened with Lisa Marie Presley, right? Where she just passed away recently. It just feels so sudden. A woman who is in her 50s and not having a terminal illness shouldn't just, pardon my French, but drop dead, right? That's terrifying. And so we don't like, as human beings, when things feel chaotic, when they feel like they don't have an order. We need to put things in nice little boxes, especially when it reminds of our own mortality and how fragile our own life is. So, are we going to tend to go toward that life is messy sometimes and horrible things and tragic things sometimes can just happen to us, to people we love, to a nation sometimes? No. We're going to tend to go toward the thing that gives us a nice, orderly explanation that, if we look at it, sidesteps our own risk, right? So, is it easier for me to believe that a wrong combination of medication, even though she was suffering for Marilyn Monroe, can lead to just one day your heart can't take it anymore and it fails? No, I can't take that, because I'm like, well, what medications am I taking? You know, it kind of taps into this lizard brain part of us that is just wanting to survive. Now, is it easier for me to believe that somebody from the government or the CIA or the FBI needed her dead because she kept all these secrets? Now that's becoming easier for me to believe, because now I'm sidestepping any risk. The government isn't after me. I don't have any secrets to reveal, right? Or no, none of them would want me dead, that kind of thing. So it's easier for me to go toward that explanation. And this might be triggering for people, and for me as well. It's difficult to talk about. But with 9/11, for example, that was the most chaotic and random, senseless act of violence, something we couldn't even think up, right? So, is it easier for us to believe that we can send off a loved one to work at 8, 9 in the morning, where they go every single day, no problems, on a random work day, or for that we go into a building and we've never thought twice about it? Is it easier for us to believe that an airplane can crash into that building, sending that building to the ground and thousands of people to their deaths? No. That feels too terrifying, too messy, too chaotic. How do we grapple with that? So what do people do? People say, oh, we didn't have the whole story. It's not risky the way you guys are thinking about it. There is this neat explanation that, interestingly, stops being so random, right? So we feel safer. At the end of the day, superstitions and conspiracy theories are meant to prevent our sense of distress when we're presented with the fact that life is messy. Emotions are messy. Sometimes our ability to keep ourselves safe isn't so cut and dry. That's a really, really hard thing to deal with. So what do? We take control. We take control by presenting neat explanations that exclude us from the risk of it. And with superstitions, we exercise control by doing certain ritualistic things like knocking on wood, or I don't want to go into, there's so many, not singing before breakfast, right? Or a million other things like that. We say, hold on, it's not random, it's not chaotic. No. I have control of it, and I'm going to take that control right now. Okay? That's why people buy into conspiracy theories and superstitions. Ultimately, because we are terrified and life is scary and messy. You know, I, over the last few years, know that people have bought into some conspiracy theories that have really driven a wedge between family members or significant others. And so I wanted to come on and make this video from that perspective as well, because we can more easily understand someone when we understand why it is that they believe something that we might never ever buy into. And now we know a lot of times it's driven just by primal fear, right? And whereas some people can deal with the messiness of life a little bit better or navigate it better, others can't. Others can't get out of bed in the morning knowing that a plane can go into a building. So they need to create these explanations which are nice and orderly. But what can you take out of this video? Now that we understand why superstitions and conspiracy theories exist, what can you take out of it? Well, you can take out of it that we tend to overestimate the risk of something and underestimate our ability to deal with it. I tend to see things way more risky than it actually is. Most things in life are not the outlier. Most things in life aren't assassinations and shootings and terrible tragedies and people dying way before their time. Most things are not like that. Those are the outliers. So we need to be careful with not overestimating what the actual risk is, which usually things are mildly to maybe moderately risky, or sometimes not at all, right? And at the same time, we underestimate ourselves, and that when something risky happens or terrible happens, that we'll be able to cope with it and deal with it and navigate it. So we overestimate the risk, underestimate our ability to deal with it. I want you guys to come here. I want you guys to understand, like I said, most things are not the outlier. We can mitigate most risks. And when something risky or dangerous does happen to us, most of the time, we have the capacity to deal with it. Whatever it is that comes up, right? On whatever scale, we are typically able to deal with it way better than we think we are, than we will. We're the underdog in our own minds. We make ourselves the underdog, but in reality, we are able to cope and deal with a lot, right? So, if you want to continue some of your superstitions, I think that's fine. Some of it is cultural, some of it is just habit. I don't think there's anything wrong with them. But if it's sort of taking over your life and you find that if you can't do the certain superstitious rituals, you get distressed, this is a really, really good video. Have me like a little Dr. A bobblehead in your ear talking about why you're doing what you're doing and how risky or not risky something actually is, and that you could probably deal with it without doing the rituals. And when it comes to conspiracy theories, I would explore what are the 1, 2, or 3 that you're buying into. Are they creating rifts in your life? Are they benefiting you at all? Or is it something that you're doing to keep yourself safe? Is it something that you're doing out of fear that maybe the face value explanation is the explanation? Maybe it's exhausting to keep buying into the conspiracy theory, right? So take a look at the superstitions in your life, at the conspiracy theories in your life, and think about why it is that you're propagating them and why it is that you're buying into them. And is it something you want to continue to do, or is this a fear response that you actually don't want to be controlled by? At the end of the day, life is messy. It is. And it's going to continue to be messy. But we don't always have to put it on nice little shelves. Sometimes that helps, but we don't always have to do that. Sometimes we could just have radical acceptance that life is going to be messy. Sometimes it's going to be chaotic, and sometimes it's going to be, unpredictable. But when I am presented with that unpredictability, that I have more of a capacity to deal with it than I'm giving myself credit for. Okay? Until next time,